food preparation and nutrition video demonstration, and today we're going to learn how to make fresh pasta. Now, as always, when you enter the room, the first thing you need to do is wash your hands, make sure they're nice and clean, because you're going to get your hands in the bowl today making your pasta dough. So it's really important your hands are nice and clean, and you're going to want to collect your equipment. Now for this today, you're going to want to collect a metal bowl, which will be at the front of the desk, and you're going to want to collect a fork. Alright, and they're going to be in the black unit down here. Now, as well today, you'll have a flour dredger. Now these are going to be on your desk already. You'll have a pasta machine, and again, these will be on your desk ready for you. And you're going to have a heat mat. Now we're not going to use anything hot today, but the heat mat is going to help us keep this down on the surface. But that should be on your desk ready to go as well. So, once you've got all our equipment and we're ready to go, first thing you're going to do is get your flour. And as you know, it's 100 grams of flour to 1 egg. So whenever we're making fresh pasta, that's the ratio that you want to stick to. 100 grams of flour for 1 egg. And the first thing you're going to do is place your flour into your bowl. Now when you do this, what you're going to want to try and do with your fork, this is where it gets quite tricky. And I'm going to show you on this camera here, hopefully. You need to make a perfect well. So you're going to scrape the flour away from the middle with your fork. So you're going to make that well. You're trying to scrape out, in fact you can use your fingers as well, just scrape that flour away from the middle. As you can see here, on that camera there, hold that up, you can see hopefully that I've got that well in the middle. And from there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my egg, and I'm going to crack my egg right into the middle of the flour, and with my fork I'm going to try and beat the egg without mixing it with the flour. So I'm not going to get the flour and mix the flour and the egg together. That's not what I'm going to try and do. I just want to beat the egg in the middle of that well, where I'm going to keep in the flour exactly where it is. So get my egg, lower it into my bowl, and then crack my egg perfectly if I can in the middle. There we go. Up there. Now it might mix a little bit, but you're not going to be able to stop that. Oh, a little shot in there as well. So from there, with my fork now, just very carefully try and beat the egg, not mixing the flour in just yet. So basically what I'm trying to do, using the camera here, is just mix the egg yolk and the egg white. So just beating that so it's mixed. And again, I'm trying not to get the flour involved just yet. Okay, I'm just trying to keep the egg in that well I made without bringing any flour in to the mix just yet. That will come later. As I'm whisking it, obviously a little bit of flour from around the edge is starting to get introduced, and that is fine for the moment. Now once you've got the egg beaten, what you're going to do is you're going to introduce a tiny bit of flour from the edge of that well at a time. You're not going to fold it all in. You're just going to get your fork and just put some flour into that egg, and you're going to mix, but trying to keep that well where it is. So just mixing the egg with that flour. Okay, and once that flour looks like it's all absorbed, I can get a little bit more and just fold that flour in, but not all at once. If you do it all at once, the dough is not going to work. So I'm again just mixing. So I'm just doing a mixing motion, okay, with the fork, just trying to get that egg and the flour to combine. All right. So again, if I can show you, it's hard to show on this camera. I'm going to tip it. You can see there, like that. Introduce a bit more of the flour around the side. Start folding it in. Like so. And eventually, when that well disappears, that's when we can get our hands dirty and start getting in there with the flour and the egg. So again, get that flour in a little bit at a time. So it's one thing that we, obviously, it's hard to say. You don't want to rush because you don't want to get impatient by just dumping all your flour onto the egg. But at the same time, once this dough is ready, we've kneaded it, it needs to rest for around 20 minutes before we can actually use it. Okay, so we need to let it prove, I should say. You start to see that all coming together now. So now it's got to the point where we can see it's getting a bit sticky with the fork. I'm now going to try and get my hands in there and get the flour, put my fork to one side, on that dough. So I'm going to get my flour on that dough, and I get the egg rolled around that dough and just start pressing the flour into the egg. At the moment it's still really sticky, but that's fine because you've got a lot of flour in there, which is going to help, and that egg is going to absorb the flour, which turns it into a dough. So I'm just going to start almost pressing it, maybe it's in this camera here, as I flip. I'm always kneading the dough now, so I'm pressing it and rolling it like so in there to make it that dough. Like so. Okay. So absorbing any more of that flour. And this with one hand. Now, if I was to show any traditionalists what I'm doing, they would shout at me because I'm actually making this in a bowl. Now, ideally, what we would do, if we weren't in school, if you're at home and you wanted to try this, and I apologise for now any mums, dads, nans, granddads, carers, or whatever, that you would actually make that flour well straight on your work surface. You wouldn't actually do this in a bowl. You'd put it on your work surface and crack the egg straight onto your work surface and do what I'm doing now, straight directly on the work surface. But because obviously we're in school, I want to try and contain some of the mess of 24 students making this at the same time. We're going to do this in a metal bowl. If I was at home doing this, I would be doing this directly onto my work surface. And it's almost like they're ready to take out of the bowl and start working on the work surface. And you can see now what I'm doing is slowly working, and if it starts to get a bit sticky on the work surface, again, a bit more plain flour on the desk, and just kneading like so. Okay, so I'm kneading my dough. And I'm going to knead this dough for about 5 minutes. Okay, so it's to get those glutens all stretchy. We want them to be stretchy because it's going to go through our pasta machine. And we want it to stretch nicely on the machine. So we need to make sure we're kneading this for around 5 minutes. Right, what we're going to do now is, whilst I am kneading this, you need to watch me knead for the whole time, I am going to come back once I've kneaded this for that 5 minutes. I'm then going to knead it and I'm going to let it rest for around 20 minutes, like we will do in the lesson, and then when we're ready we'll come back and we'll have the pasta machine set up, and I'm going to show you how to use our pasta machines. Okay, so I'll see you in a sec. Welcome back. So I have let my dough prove now for around 20 minutes. Now I've just covered mine with tea towel. You could use some cling film, as long as it's clean, just make sure it's covered so it doesn't go hard and dry. Now obviously whilst that's happening, I've then decided to wash up my bowl and get everything nice and clean, just to make sure we're ready to speed things up for your lesson. So once you've got washed up, you need to set up your pasta machine. Now to do that, you're going to get your heat-proof mat and your pasta machine. You're going to want to put your heat-proof mat right on the edge of the table. You'll be able to see on this camera here what I'm doing. And then I'm going to place my pasta machine close to the edge as well. Now the reason I wanted to do that is because the handle itself goes into the pasta machines and it hangs below the level of the table. So to be able to turn your handle, you can't have it over the top of the desk because the handle will not turn. So the handle needs to overhang the edge of the desk slightly. Now this is where you guys are going to be more of an advantage, because you're going to be working in pairs on your table. I am by myself. So with your partner, you'd have a partner here to be able to help you hold down your pasta machine whilst you're turning the handle. So mine might start tipping and moving and falling over a little bit, but that's why you're in pairs to be able to hold the pasta machine and help feed the pasta in. So once you're ready, you'll put the handle into the very first hole, so the hole furthest on the left hand side, which is the roller here. Now with the roller, if I move this out of the way and I get my dough ready, looks good. It's to one side. With my roller, what that's going to do, that's going to stretch my pasta out. So it's going to make some nice long sheets. Now to do that, you've got this little dial on the side here. You'll be able to see that on this camera here. And there are numbers. So what you're going to want to do is turn that pasta machine to number 1. And that is going to open up the rollers nice and wide. Well, you don't want to try and squash your pasta too thin, your dough too thin in one run, because that's going to make it rip. So you want to put it on number 1, which keeps the rollers as wide as they possibly can. Now obviously the dough is going to be a little bit sticky, so what we're going to want to do with our flour dredger is just put a little bit of flour on the table where that pasta is going to run out to. And when you're ready, just give your dough a little press, just to flatten it down a little bit. I'm going to place my dough into the rollers, and whilst trying to hold everything at the same time, turn my roller. You can see it just grips and it starts to grab the dough, and I can then roll through. And as it's rolling through, I'm just going to make sure I guide it with my hand. As I said, you can see my pasta machine slipping around a little bit because I'm by myself. With your partner, you can get some of that flour and get it on there so it doesn't stick. Roll it round. Again, you and your partner can help you and just feed that out. And you can hopefully see on that camera in the front there, it's starting to feed out. Get sticky, there we go. Get it all the way out. And what I can do then is pull it through, once it's come through, and just put it on the flour and get that flour. You don't want to use don't over flour it, because that'll be a very floury pasta dough. You just want to make sure it's floury enough that it's not going to stick to the table or to the machine. Once you've rolled it through on number 1, turn it to number 2, or I'm going to go straight to number 3 just to try and speed things up on the camera. This is where it gets a little bit trickier now, so I've got to try and hold everything and feed it at once. So feed it in, putting it to number 3, you can see, oh, it's going to fall. Let's put it down there like that, see if I can get it in. That's where I need a glamorous assistant to come and help me. There we go. Once it's grabbed, it should, if you've made your dough nicely, it should just feed through itself. But again, as I'm rolling, I'm just going to pull it through like so. I don't want it to gather underneath here. If it gathers, it might stick and you're going to basically turn it back into a dough ball, which you don't want to do. So just roll it through a little bit, pull it through. And you'll hopefully see that it's getting longer because my dough is becoming thinner. Hence why I'm putting it through the rollers like so. I'm not looking forward to this next one. This next one's going to be tricky by myself. Again, if you want to, just get some flour in your hands and just rub that on. Avoid putting the flour, dumping the flour straight onto the pasta, onto the dough, just because, again, what that's going to do, it's going to put too much flour on. You're going to have a really floury dough to make your pasta. Just rubbing that in like so. Right, let's try the tricky one then. So now I'm going to do my last one. This is my last one. I'm going to go right to number 6 is probably going to be the thinnest I go. I might run out of room on my desk actually. I might hit the hobs, but we'll see. So let's try again by myself. Let's put it onto the pasta machine. Let's try and feed it until it grabs, and hopefully I can then let go and it will do it itself. It's not going to. Come on, you can do it. There we go. So it's grabbed. I'm just going to help feed it. So feed it from the back and pull it through the front, and you're going to see now how thin that's become. That looks really good. Even if I do say so myself. I'll put that out of the way. Keep rolling that through. And again, remember, keep pulling it through. You don't want it to gather. Pull it through. There we go. You should be able to see on the camera the difference already of how stretched out this is becoming. And I'm worried it's not actually going to fit on my desk. Keep rolling. Hopefully when you do this, you're going to be very impressed, because you're going to be doing this with a partner, and you'll see how tricky it is. I'm doing this by myself, so hopefully you're going to be like, Mr. Hale's good at this. Just as I said how impressed you're going to be, I go and drop the handle on the floor. Of course I do. Right, so bring that out, extend that out again and again. If it's feeling a little bit sticky, you don't want it to rip, you don't want to over flour it again. So just rub that flour on, like so. So what I'm now going to do, I'm going to turn it into spaghetti, or tagliatelle or something like that. And you'll see, and again I'll put a photograph of the actual pasta machine on the sway so you can see what I'm talking about. But you've got 3 options here now of what sort of spaghetti or tagliatelle you want to turn it into. So I'm going to use the middle one, okay, which is obviously this one here. So I need to take my handle, take it out of the hole for the roller, and I'm going to put it into the one which I'm going to actually use. When I roll that, it's going to move this one here. Now when I put it through here, it's going to come out and feed out this way. So with my flour dredger now, I'm just going to put some flour down on this side so it doesn't stick together. This is the difficult part now. So if your dough is too sticky, as you start turning it into spaghetti or tagliatelle, it'll all then clump together and it will turn back into almost like a ball of dough, and you'll have to then repeat the process. So you want to make sure it's nice and floured, but it's a very fine art. You don't want to over flour it so it all sticks together. So because this is quite long, I'm going to do it in 2 stages. Get myself a knife and just very carefully cut. You'll see, you might be able to see on the camera how springy and how difficult this actually is to cut. So a really nice thin dough. So just pull that apart like so. Now 2 pieces. So what I'm now going to do is just feed it through this middle one. You can see how thin it is by when I pick it up. Just very carefully. Again, you've got a partner to help you here. I don't. Just put that, feed that in, start turning. Hopefully that will grab. Go on, grab for me. There we go. And you'll be able to see as it starts coming out. Hopefully, there we go. It's turning it into some nice thin tagliatelle. There we go. And as it rolls through again, just keep trying to almost feed it out into that flour, like so. So it's really hard to do with one pair of hands. There we go. So feed it out into the flour. And then once it's through, grab it, put it into the flour, and you can see there that you've made some lovely tagliatelle. And I'm going to put that to one side. Just get that dusted into the flour. Like so. Get my second sheet. Start this side now. Feed that in. Go here. So rolling it through. There we go. Shoot, oh, it's done it for me. Look at that. Around they come. Again, make sure you keep feeding it out. Just make sure. Put it through onto that flour, and hopefully there you have it. You've made fresh pasta, and in this case you've turned it into tagliatelle. Now we're not going to cook this in school. You see there is my lovely fresh pasta. Now we're not going to cook this in school, as I've just said. So when you take this home, you take this home in a sort of a container of some sort that keeps it obviously sealed. When you cook this, you're going to want to have this into boiling water for no more than 2 or 3 minutes. This is not like the dry pasta you buy from the supermarkets that takes 10 minutes to cook. This will take no more than 2, maybe 3 minutes maximum, okay? But you can have this with any pasta dish, so like you would normally cook other pasta, have this with tomato sauce, pesto, whatever you would like it with. But that's it for today. That's how to make fresh pasta, and we look forward to seeing you in class and seeing you using our pasta machines. See you soon.